The keys were gone. It was just past midnight when Officer Daniels felt a strange lightness at his side. Instinctively, his hand dropped to his belt where the thick, iron prison keys should have been clipped. His fingers touched only the cold metal of an empty chain. The keys! Those jagged pieces of steel that controlled every gate, every door, and even the main exits were gone. Panic clawed at his throat. He flicked on his flashlight, sweeping it over the concrete floor, praying to see the familiar glint of silver. But the light revealed nothing. No keys, no clatter of metal, only dust and silence. That silence pressing on him like a weight. He knew the rules. Never unclasp them, never let them out of sight, never lose them. Yet here he was, empty-handed, the very heartbeat of the prison ripped away. Daniel's mind raced. If an inmate had them, it wasn't just theft, it was disaster. Those keys could mean open doors, rushing feet, and chaos that even riot teams couldn't contain. He lifted his gaze, scanning the rows of cells. In the dim glow, some inmates lay still, feigning sleep. Others stared at him quietly, their tattooed faces unreadable. They didn't speak, but their silence was worse than laughter. It was the silence of predators watching prey panic. And with that, Daniels realized the fortress wasn't sealed anymore. Someone had the keys, and everything inside those walls was about to change. The prison of secrets. This wasn't just any prison. It was a fortress, a place designed to crush hope. Towering walls loomed over the yard, topped with razor wires so sharp it could shred skin on contact. Floodlights swept the grounds, their harsh beams cutting through the fog like giant searchlights. Every inch of the compound screamed control. Inside, that control was maintained by one simple thing. The keys. Thick, iron-heavy, impossible to bend. They weren't like the ones you use at home. Each was forged to last a lifetime. And there weren't backups. If they disappeared, there was no spare waiting in a drawer. The rules surrounding those keys were drilled into every guard from their first day. Never take them off your belt. Never leave them alone. And above all, never lose them. Because if they fell into the wrong hands, the consequences wouldn't just be dangerous. They'd be catastrophic. Those keys represented the fragile balance between order and chaos. In the hands of the guards, they were routine and structure. In the hands of inmates, they were freedom. And freedom, in a place like this, was more dangerous than any weapon. That's why Officer Daniels' discovery wasn't just a mistake. It was an earthquake. It rippled through the staff, through the walls, and into the cells. Whispers began spreading like smoke through vents, sliding under doors, echoing across the tiers. The fortress suddenly had cracks. And as inmates traded rumors in hushed tones, a chilling truth began to settle. If the keys could vanish once, they could vanish again. And if no one could keep them safe, maybe this fortress wasn't unbreakable after all. A perfect distraction. The investigation began immediately. Daniel's entire shift was pulled apart minute by minute. Every movement accounted for. He swore the keys had been on his belt. He swore he never unclipped them. But when they retraced the steps, one moment stood out, a moment that now seemed too perfect to ignore. Earlier that night, Daniels had stopped in the mess hall. A handful of inmates were cleaning after dinner, mopping the floor and stacking trays. It was routine, nothing unusual. But then Spider approached. A wiry inmate with sharp features, tattooed arms, and eyes that never stopped moving. Spider asked for water. Just a simple request. Daniels remembered turning slightly, just for a second, to reach for a cup. It was the kind of moment a guard never thought twice about. But in prison, a second is an eternity. Could Spider have used that tiny sliver of time to unclasp the keys? Could he have been quick enough to slip them free without anyone noticing? Daniel's stomach dropped at the thought. It was possible. And if anyone had the skill to do it, it was Spider. But when guards stormed Spider's cell, they found nothing. They tore apart his mattress, flipped his bunk, checked his shoes, even searched his food tray. No keys. Nothing but a smirk on Spider's face as he leaned against the wall, as if enjoying the show. The lack of evidence only made the suspicion worse. If Spider didn't have the keys, then who did? And if he did have them, where in the world could he have hidden them? Lockdown. The missing keys triggered the nuclear option. Within minutes, alarms wailed to the prison, their shrill cries echoing off steel and concrete. Red lights flashed above every door as the loudspeaker blared. Cold black, full lockdown in effect. Cell doors slammed with mechanical force. Each echo a reminder of the panic spreading through the staff. Guards ran down hallways, radios crackling with frantic voices, trying to lock down every corner of the facility. But the lockdown didn't bring order. It fueled chaos. Inmates pounded their fists on bars, some chanting Spider's name, others spreading rumors about a planned escape. The more the guards tried to silence them, the louder they became. Inside the control room, the warden stared at the screens. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every blurred shape a potential threat. If someone had the keys, lockdown was meaningless. It only gave them the stage to act. Daniels felt his stomach twist as he replayed the moment in the mess hall. Had he handed the prison over with a single careless glance? The thought gnawed at him while the chaos swelled around him. The prison was supposed to be a fortress. But tonight, it felt like the walls themselves were cracking. The search began with brutal precision. Guards stormed cells, tossing mattresses, ripping sheets, tearing apart vents, and even pulling food trays apart by hand. Nothing was sacred. The kitchen was overturned, pots clanging across the tile. In the chapel, wooden pews were flipped, hymn books scattered like leaves. Even the workshop was ripped apart, every drawer emptied, every tool inspected. Hours dragged on. Exhaustion clung to the guards, but the fear of the missing keys burned hotter than fatigue. That's when an officer spotted something unusual. Tiny metal shavings glinting under a light in the workshop. The room froze. If someone had been grinding steel, it could mean an attempt to copy the keys. The idea spread like fire. If duplicates were made, even finding the originals wouldn't stop the threat. But when the shavings were tested, the results made no sense. They weren't from the prison's key metal at all. It was a decoy, planted to waste time and create paranoia. Someone wasn't just stealing. They were playing a game, and the guards were losing. Whispers in the yard. When inmates were released for yard time, the whispers spread like wildfire. Some claimed Spider had passed the keys to someone else. Others said a guard had sold them for money. The rumors grew darker with each retelling. Some inmates swore they saw the rookie guard slip into a storage closet, holding something shiny. His nervous stares and shaky hands only fueled suspicion. The rookie was dragged into questioning. At first, he denied everything. But under pressure, he admitted sneaking into the closet, not with keys but to hide. He confessed he was terrified of walking the yard alone at night. The humiliation was written all over his face. But was it the truth? Some guards believed him. Others thought it was just a clumsy lie. Meanwhile, the inmates fed on the rumors. The rookie became the perfect scapegoat, the weakest link in a chain already stretched thin. If the rookie was innocent, then someone else was moving in the shadows. And if he wasn't, then the enemy wasn't in a cell. It was in uniform. The Phantom escape plan. The prison thought things couldn't get worse. Then the library search turned up something terrifying. Hidden inside the spine of a dusty book was a crude, hand-drawn map. The map detailed hallways, cell blocks, and guard rotations. A red circle marked a path leading straight to the delivery exit. A door that could only be opened with the missing keys. The discovery sent chills through the staff. This wasn't a random theft anymore. It was a plan, a deliberate strategy. Someone wasn't just holding the keys. They were preparing to use them. Even worse, the ink on the map looked fresh. Smudges showed it had been drawn recently. That meant the escape plan wasn't a dream from the past. It was alive, unfolding right now. The warden tightened his grip on the paper, rage flashing across his face. Whoever drew this had intimate knowledge of the prison. This wasn't an inmate guessing. It was someone who had studied every weakness. And if the red path was followed, one thing was clear. The prison's gates wouldn't hold for long. False hope. By the fourth night of chaos, a guard shouted across the tier. He had found something. Taped beneath a wooden pew in the chapel was a ring of keys. Heavy, metallic. The guard hearts leapt. Relief washed over the staff like a sudden storm-breaking heat. The discovery spread fast. The warden himself rushed to the chapel. The sight of the keys, sitting heavy in a gloved hand, seemed like victory. For a moment, it felt like the nightmare was over. But when they tested them, everything collapsed. One by one, the keys slid into locks and failed. None of them fit. They weren't real. Instead, they were careful imitations, shaped roughly like the real thing, but too crude to work. Someone had planted decoys. A cruel joke meant to humiliate the staff further. The realization sent rage through the guards. The warden crushed the fake keys in his fist. They had been chasing shadows, running in circles, while someone outsmarted them at every turn. And the cruelest part? Whoever planted the fakes had time. Time to mock them. Time to prepare for whatever came next. The inmate informant. Desperate, the warden turned to someone he swore he'd never use. An informant. The man was a long-time snitch, an inmate who had sold secrets before. Dangerous to trust, but sometimes necessary. Brought into a dim room, the informant leaned forward, whispering words that sent chills through the air. The keys aren't gone. They're waiting. You'll find them when it's too late. When pressed for names, he only smiled. Instead, he offered a warning. Check the tunnels. The guards froze. Officially, there were no tunnels. The prison was supposed to be solid, impenetrable, but the informant's eyes burned with certainty. Whether it was truth or manipulation, it didn't matter. The fear had been planted. Guards looked at one another nervously. Had they missed something deep below their feet? The warden dismissed the inmate, but his mind was racing. If tunnels existed, if even part of that rumor was true, then this was bigger than missing keys. This was an inside operation hiding beneath the prison itself. Beneath the prison, armed with flashlights, a search team descended into the maintenance shafts. Dust coated the air, pipes hissed, and the smell of mildew clung to the walls. Few guards ever came here. It was a forgotten skeleton beneath the prison. As they moved deeper, they found scratches on the concrete. Small at first, then larger. Chisel marks, loose bricks, signs of tampering. One guard crouched and spotted something wedged in the cracks of a vent. He pulled it free. A broken key ring, the same type used by officers. The discovery hit hard. If the missing keys had been carried underground, it meant prisoners were using these hidden spaces to move unnoticed. The prison walls above were useless if the ground below was already compromised. Then, the beam of a flashlight swept across the wall. Scrawled in chalk was a crude drawing, the shape of a spider. The guards froze. The symbol confirmed what they feared most. Spider's hand was in this, and if a symbol was here, then he knew they had found his trail. The countdown. The chalk symbol was still fresh when the next threat appeared. In the laundry room, hidden inside a bag of uniforms, guards found a note. The handwriting was jagged, angry, almost carved into the paper itself. It read, "Tonight, the doors will open." The warden's face drained of color as he read the words. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. Someone had set a time, a deadline, and the countdown had already begun. Guards doubled their posts. Radios buzzed with frantic orders. Inmates pressed against their bars, sensing the electricity in the air. Everyone could feel it. Something was coming. But the question burned through the staff like fire. Was the note real, or was it another layer of misdirection? Were they hours from a breakout, or walking into another trick? The clock ticked closer to midnight, and every second that passed carried the weight of a storm about to break. The silent signal. The countdown to midnight had everyone on edge. Guards patrolled with flashlights, boots echoing against the concrete. Inmates sat in silence, watching, waiting. Then it happened. The overhead lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. It lasted only seconds, but it was too deliberate, too precise. To the guards, it looked like a power glitch. But to the inmates, it was a message, a signal. Whispers rose like smoke. "It's starting," someone muttered. Prisoners pounded their fists against bars in rhythm. 3 quick strikes to mimic the flickers. Daniels felt sweat drip down his back. Someone was sending signals under their noses. Someone had turned the prison's own infrastructure into a tool. And the scariest part? Whoever sent it wanted everyone to know the game wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The warden's gambit. The warden refused to let the inmates control the pace. Desperate to regain order, he ordered a drastic move, a staged escape drill. Alarms blared. Guards stormed corridors, shouting commands. Radio screamed false reports. Prisoner on the loose. Lock everything down. The plan was to scare whoever had the keys into panicking, forcing them to act too soon. But instead of fear, something else happened. Inmates erupted into cheers. They slammed their fists against the bars, chanting Spider's name like a war cry. The warden's face drained as he realized his trap had failed. Instead of flushing the culprit out, he had confirmed the myth that Spider's plan was real. And worse, the cheering wasn't fear. It was belief. The prison had turned into a congregation, and Spider was its prophet. The warden had gambled and lost. Now, the prisoners believed more strongly than ever that the doors would open. The hidden recorder, the chaos of the failed drill forced investigators to search staff areas again. That's when they found it. A tiny voice recorder taped under a desk in the guard office. They pressed play. A distorted voice filled the room. Asterisk, the keys open more than doors. They opened secrets. The words sent chills down their spines. But what unnerved the most was the background sound. Water dripping, echoing footsteps. It wasn't just a voice. It was a location, underground tunnels. The room went silent. Whoever planted the recorder wasn't just mocking them. They were watching, recording, and leaving behind proof of their presence. Daniels felt the hairs on his neck stand up. The voice didn't sound like Spider. It sounded like someone else, which meant Spider wasn't alone. And worse, it meant the staff weren't hunting a thief anymore. They were being hunted themselves. The disappearance of Spider. The next morning, the prison erupted with a new shock. At roll call, one inmate was missing, Spider. His cell was locked. The door was secure, but the bed was empty. It was as though he had vanished into thin air. Guards stormed his block, searching vents, checking every corner. Nothing, not a trace. The rumor spread faster than wildfire. Inmates cheered, some shouting Spider's name, others calling him a ghost. To them, he wasn't gone. He was free. But the guards saw it differently. Spider's disappearance wasn't freedom. It was proof that someone had the keys, or worse, a hidden way out. The fortress had been breached, and now the ghost of Spider haunted every hallway. The false trail. Within hours, investigators thought they had Spider's trail. A guard swore he saw him near the loading dock the night before. Security footage was pulled. Grainy black and white images showed a figure slipping into shadows near the dock. For a moment, everyone believed it was Spider. But when the footage was enhanced, the truth emerged. It wasn't Spider at all. It was another inmate, dressed in stolen clothes to mimic him. The trick was deliberate. A decoy meant confuse and mislead. The prison wasn't chasing one man. They were chasing a network. If Spider was gone, it wasn't by luck. It was by design. And that meant every step the guards took was part of a plan someone else had already written. The vanishing keys. Then came another blow. Guards discovered a ring of keys in a supply closet, hidden under mop buckets. Relief surged through the prison. But the next morning, the keys were gone again, stolen right out of the evidence locker. The warden's face turned red with rage. How could something so secure vanish under their noses? The answer was worse than they wanted to admit. It wasn't inmates sneaking past security. It was someone with access. Someone in uniform. The staff realized the enemy wasn't just behind bars. The betrayal was inside their own ranks. And now, no one could trust anyone. Inside man. The revelation turned guards against one another. The break room became a place of suspicion. Every glance was sharp, every silence heavy. Then it happened. One officer quit abruptly. No warning, no explanation. When they searched his locker, everything was gone. Uniform, belongings, all cleared out. All except one thing. A folded scrap of paper. On it, a crude chalk drawing of a spider. The message was unmistakable. The betrayal had come from within. And now the web stretched further than anyone had dared imagine. The countdown begins. Then As if taunting them, the PA system crackled alive. A distorted voice boomed across the prison. At midnight, the locks fall. The voice wasn't on the logs. It wasn't on the radio system. It came from nowhere, like the prison itself was speaking. Guards froze where they stood. Inmates erupted into cheers, slamming their bars. Midnight was no longer rumor. It was a deadline. The warden doubled the posts. Radios blared, but fear had already settled in, because no one knew what would happen at midnight. The midnight hour. The clock struck midnight. Silence fell across the prison. Guards held their radios tight, weapons ready. Then, click. One cell lock and block. C slid open. The door creaked. An inmate stepped into the hallway. Before guards could move, another lock clicked. Then another. One by one, the doors were opening, as though an invisible hand was unlocking them from inside. The alarms blared. Guards charged. But panic was spreading. The fortress was bleeding from the inside. And in that chaos, one name rang louder than the rest: Spider. The final twist. The locks kept clicking open, but something was wrong. The guards realized quickly. The keys weren't being used at all. The doors were electronic. Someone had hacked into the control system. The missing keys weren't the weapon. They were the distraction. All this time, the guards had been chasing shadows while someone else had been breaking into the heart of the prison systems. Then came the shout from the tower, "Spider! He's in the yard!" The spotlight swung across the yard, catching a faint silhouette near the outer gate. But when the light steadied, the figure was gone. The yard hunt. The yard was swarming with guards. Floodlights cut across the fog, rifles aimed at shadows. Every corner was searched, every inch swept. But Spider had vanished again. Some swore they saw him duck behind the laundry trucks. Others swore he scaled the outer fence. But every lead dissolved into nothing. The inmates roared from their cells, chanting his name. To them, Spider was no longer just a man. He was a ghost, moving where he wanted, untouchable. Daniels felt his chest tighten. If Spider was out there, if he truly had the keys or controlled the locks, then nothing inside this fortress was safe anymore. The warden barked orders, sending teams in every direction. But the fear was clear in his eyes. He wasn't sure they were chasing a man. They might be chasing a legend. And legends, once born in prison, were almost impossible to kill. The vanishing point. Spider's absence grew stranger by the hour. The prison was locked down tighter than ever. Every gate guarded, every corridor blocked. Yet Spider was nowhere. The search team scoured vents, shafts, crawl spaces. Dogs sniffed every corner. But the trail was cold. Then came the rumor. Spider wasn't in the prison at all. Some inmates claimed he walked straight out through a door, calm, deliberate, and unseen. It sounded impossible. But the missing keys, the hacked locks, the taunts, they all pointed to one terrifying truth. Spider was always one step ahead. The warden stood in silence, staring at the monitors. If Spider was gone, the question wasn't how he left. It was how many others might follow. And if the fortress could no longer hold Spider, maybe it could hold no one. The Phantom Map. Just when hope seemed lost, another discovery emerged. In the prison chapel, taped under the altar, was another map. This one was cleaner, more detailed. Not just a path, but a plan. Arrows marked movements. Timelines scribbled in the margins. It wasn't just about Spider. It was about dozens of inmates. The escape plan wasn't one man slipping away. It was a mass exodus waiting to happen. The warden's hands shook as he unfolded the map. The writing matched the earlier one. Spider's handwriting, no doubt. But at the bottom, a final line was scrawled. The web is everywhere. And suddenly, the prison walls felt tighter, darker, and more fragile than ever. The double agent. Suspicion now turned inward. If Spider's maps were so accurate, he had help. Someone in uniform was feeding him intel. Eyes turned to Daniels. He had been the one to lose the keys. He had been the one distracted by Spider. Some guards whispered he wasn't incompetent. He was complicit. Daniels denied it, voice breaking with desperation. But the stares in the room didn't change. Then came the cruelest twist. A sealed envelope appeared in Daniel's locker. Inside, a crude sketch of Spider grinning. The message was clear. Someone wanted Daniels blamed. Someone wanted him marked. And if suspicion grew too strong, the guards might turn on one of their own. The control room siege. At 2 a.m., alarms blared again. Guards rushed to the control room, only to find the monitors flickering, the system hijacked. Every screen lit up with grainy video of Spider, his face close to the lens, grinning. Behind him, the tunnel stretched into darkness. The guards froze. The message was clear. He wasn't just mocking them. He was inside their systems. Then the lights cut. Darkness swallowed the control room. Radio screamed static. When the power flicked back, one monitor showed words scrawled across the screen. I have the web. You only have walls. The war was no longer about steel or keys. It was about control itself. The riot brews. The inmates smelled weakness. With Spider's video spreading through blocks, whispers turned into shouts. Spider's free, they screamed. He'll open the gates. Guards tightened their grips on batons. Inmates pounded bars louder than ever. The air itself felt electric, alive with rebellion. Daniels felt the ground vibrating with the rhythm of fists striking steel. It wasn't just noise. It was momentum. The warden knew it too. If Spider returned, real or not, the prison would ignite into full riot. And they weren't ready to put out the fire. The tunnel revelation. Investigators returned underground, this time deeper, past broken pipes, past old foundations. There, carved into the concrete, was something they couldn't deny. A tunnel, wide enough for a man, reinforced with stolen wood, leading straight toward the yard. Spider hadn't just disappeared. He had been digging. The warden's heart sank. The missing keys, the fake maps, the taunts, they were all distractions. The real escape plan was beneath their feet. And the tunnel wasn't just finished. It was waiting. The false escape. The guards flooded the tunnel. Every inch searched, every corner checked. At the far end, they found footprints. Fresh. They followed them, breath held, weapons ready. But when they reached the end, the truth hit. Spider wasn't there. The tunnel led only to a dead-end wall, a false escape route. He hadn't used it to leave. He had used it to distract them one last time. And above them, in the silence, the prison was unraveling without them. The great blackout. As they emerged from the tunnels, chaos reigned above. The entire prison plunged into darkness. Generators had failed. Floodlights gone. Cameras dead. In that pitch-black silence, the inmates roared. Steel slammed. Voices howled. The fortress had become a cage of chaos. Daniels felt the fear crawl up his throat. Without light, without order, they were blind. And in the dark, Spider's name rose louder than ever. The web titans. When the power flickered back, one monitor in the control room glowed. On the screen was Spider's face again, grainy, distorted, his grin wider than ever. Behind him, darkness stretched. He leaned close to the camera and whispered, "The keys were never lost. You were." Then the screen went black. The warden stood frozen. Guards whispered in fear. And Daniels felt his knees weaken, because the truth was undeniable now. The mystery wasn't about keys anymore. It was about control, deception, and a man who had turned a fortress into his web. And no one knew if Spider was inside or already gone. The keys were never just keys. Prisons are supposed to be unbreakable. Steel doors, concrete walls, rules written in blood and fear. But the mystery of the missing guard keys proved something chilling. Walls don't hold people. Control does. And when control is gone, the walls are nothing but stone. Spider turned a fortress into a stage. He didn't just steal metal keys. He stole certainty. He blurred the line between inmate and ghost, between rumor and reality. The guards searched cells, lockers, tunnels, even each other. But the truth stayed one step ahead, always taunting, always out of reach. Maybe the keys were real. Maybe they were fakes. Maybe Spider was inside. Maybe he was gone. The answer didn't matter anymore. What mattered was a fear, the whisper that at any moment the locks could fall and the walls could collapse. The warden lost his grip. The guards lost their trust. And the inmates, they gained belief. Belief in a man who became more than human. A phantom of the prison system. A legend written in shadows. So the final question isn't who took the keys. The real question is, when the doors finally open, will anyone be ready?